Okay, here
Okay.
we are. We made it. I am chatting with comedian Gina Brillon. I feel like this has been in the works for a while. You're very busy. I think when
Yes.
we originally tried to schedule, you had just one or were on AGT and your life got insanely busy. But you have two really big things coming up. You have a comedy special that's coming out here very soon,
Yes.
which you're taping at
Um,
my home club in San Jose, which is really
well,
cool.
I was supposed to, but we had to postpone it now.
Oh, you
But
did?
I'm still gonna be in San Jose, and we may still end up filming there, depending on when we head back. Yeah, there were some production issues, so we actually had to postpone. I did it begrudgingly. I was like, no, I want to film this special because I love San Jose. Honestly, I've had such a great time there every time I've gone. And so I was a little bummed, but I promised the fans a really good show and like just a special meet and greet after just to thank them for being a part of still what will be a special night.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful club. I mean, you couldn't have picked a better place. I
Oh,
mean, I've seen several
love that
shows
place.
there. It's almost like by design to record specials like that. I mean, I think a lot of
Yeah.
people have done things there. Well, that's very cool.
Yeah. Angela
So,
Johnson filmed there.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a great club. It's big, it holds a lot of people, but it's also got a very intimate vibe to it as well, which I think
Hmm.
is special, particularly as a comic. I mean, it's a big badge of honor, right? To be able to do a special at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the probably my one of my favorite things to do is work on a special. I think because all of the comics that I admired were people with multiple specials. Like I'm a huge Carlin fan, love Rich
Okay.
and Jenny. Like these people all had like multiple specials. Kathleen Madigan, like I just I think it's something to a goal that at least at one point I think every comic should strive to put together an album or a special. Because it's a culmination of so much of your hard work that you get to actually see. Like you get to now you've put it somewhere, it's out there in the ether.
Yeah, I was talking to another comic a few days ago, and she was getting ready to record her special here in Colorado at the Comedy Fort. And she said,
Okay.
I've been telling these jokes for almost 10 years, and I'm ready to get them out there. So, how far back in the shelf of comedy and bits are you going for the special when you do get a chance to film?
Well, it's so funny because it's 3 years worth of work for myself and other people involved in the special. But this is like basically 3 years of my life, being pregnant during a global pandemic, what motherhood is like in this climate, and how you parent differently after doing the work in therapy and after kind of attempting to fix all of the cracks in your foundation. Um, so it's 3 years of growth and change and hardship, really, that culminate into this special.
Wow. I just think that's so fascinating. Well, I want to ask you because you're the second comic I've had on since I started the show that talks about therapy. How did that change you, or did it change you as a comedian? Do you feel that it helped you? Because there's this drama,
Yeah.
there's this persona out there that comics are wounded and hurt, which I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's definitely a unique group of people that do what you do. But
Hmm.
I think therapy, though, this last comic said it helped her in a lot of different ways, as far as putting material together and working on bits.
It did a few things. Yeah, it definitely helped me both in life and in my career. And I think I mean I'm an advocate for mental health. I think everybody should go in for therapy. And no, I don't think every single comic follows that, um, that same, what is it, storyline of, hey, I'm really a sad clown.
Yeah,
But I do
sad.
think,
Wow.
I do think many of us do heal through humor regardless. And I think that's where the connection is. Whether we're using our humor to deflect our pain or to heal from it, we're
Okay.
using it in a sense like therapy. So I think the way this affected me in terms of writing, I started to see all the times where I finally understood what it was, the term punching down. I
Okay.
finally understood terms like that, after unpacking so much for myself, I even understood a lot of my own internalized misogyny and all these different things that you don't realize that you're doing, and not in a, burn this place down kind of way, but in a very healing, oh, I don't have to be like that anymore. Because
Okay.
a lot of that is also, I think, something we do to protect ourselves. It's like a shield that we use to protect ourselves. The punching down, the misogyny, everything we use. I know when I started, I was quite often the only woman on the show. So for me,
Okay.
it was it was a defense mechanism to sound like and act like the guys.
Interesting.
It kept me safe.
Wow,
If I
that's
act like
very
one of the
deep.
guys, then yeah, I get deep, guys. We like to get deep around here.
Wow.
That's
I mean,
another
I
thing
could
too.
see that though being the case, and I've heard that not put so eloquently before, but really like I think I can't think of her name. She's a Wayans and she's a comic and
Shantae,
Shantae, yeah, said something
I am
similarly.
by the way, I am a comic encyclopedia.
Well,
You
that's
could
good.
probably do like 3 words of someone's act, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that was Mitch Hedberg. Like I could do like
That's
most of
great.
them.
Well, she
So
said something similarly in the fact that like she was hanging out with her brothers and she felt like she had to be like them. And then in turn, it backfired on her a little bit because then they just started treating her like one of the guys and not as a woman. And they made a joke about the fact, well, you're gay, so it shouldn't bother you. But she's like, well, I'm still a woman,
yeah.
period. And that really like changed her perspective. Well, that's very interesting. I love that. I think that's great. So, I mean, yeah, this whole concept of sad clown, I think is really even like the term misfits. I think, I don't know. I mean, what you do is different, I think, than what most people would do in an 8 to 5 job.
Yeah, 100%. I think we are different. We're sort of, I think in order to choose comedy as a profession, we are the outliers. We are the
Yeah.
forever observers. We are the people that, you know, in our own way want to hold a mirror up to society, or want to break things down, or want to point out nuances that we notice. We're more observers of life at times than participants in it, which I think to our detriment at times. But I do think that we're so good at looking at the world and figuring out different functions and seeing things differently. That's the allure of comedy for me personally, is how a person thinks. That's why I think I love so many different comics, because point of view and everything, just it changes everything. We can all talk about the same thing: makeups, breakups, jobs, kids, whatever. But where are you coming from? Like, what's your perspective? I think that's a lot of the beauty in the artwork and comedy that doesn't really get noticed, addressed, or respected enough.
Yes. So you're mostly observational then, point of view. Interestingly enough, when you started comedy, how did you figure your voice out and decide where you were going to go with your persona, so to speak? Because right now we're having a normal conversation. Obviously, when you're performing, it's a lot more elevated, but I still get the
Yeah.
feeling that this is who you are. So, how did you make the decision to figure out, okay, this is where I'm going to go with my act, my persona as a comic?
I mean, that's not something I really decided. It's just something that I think I fell into. And that's
Okay.
only because I didn't know any other way to be.
Oh, okay.
I fell in love with comedy at like 14 years old. And so, because I was in it at such a young age, and I wasn't good at pretending. I wasn't good at like pretending to be somebody else. Like there were comics that I would see go up and do a character, or comics I would see that their material was a complete disconnect from their personality.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't know how to do that. I all I know how to do is, these are my opinions. This is what I see. This is how I've lived my life, and talk about what I know. And I remember 4 years in, I was at Gladys's Comedy Club in the back of Hamburger Harry, and one of the comics came up to me and said, "You know what I love about you? You already know your voice."
Wow.
And I remember thinking, what does that even mean? Like, what is my voice? 4 years in, I didn't know what that meant. I was like, I'm supposed to have a voice? I don't know what that means. What do you mean I know my voice? It's the only voice I got. I didn't know how to switch it up. So the thing that everybody works for and the thing that I've been told, like even the beginning of my career, was it takes about 10 years to find your voice, to
Yeah.
figure out who you are on that stage. And I remember hearing that and being like, oh, that sounds awful. That sounds like a journey of nerves and anxiety that I don't want to be on. I think my version of finding my voice was sort of I guess accepting that this passion was going to be one of the hardest things I was ever going to have to do.
Okay.
One of those things I was going to have to push myself every night because you know how difficult it gets. The peaks and the valleys are deep. The valleys go deep. There are so many points in my career. Like I do a Q&A after my show sometimes if I like the crowd. If I don't, you don't get a Q&A. So if I was ever at your city and if I was ever at a club and you didn't get a Q&A, um, that's on you. But I often get asked, like, have you ever wanted to quit? And I'm like, yeah, every single day. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't go, why do I do this? Like, I could have a regular, financially stable job and be a 9 to 5er. And my therapist is always like, you wouldn't last a day. You wouldn't. I know that this is my passion. So I had to accept that the hard work came with it and the hard nights and yeah, and the struggle comes with it. So if you love comedy, it's almost like you have to love the struggle too.
Yeah. I'm friends with a couple local comics here, and they do local shows here in Loveland where I'm at, the bars and things like that, city wineries, all of that. And my point is
Yeah.
that they talk about the fact that that's where you really get tested as a comedian, because it's like you're not doing the bring a friend shows maybe, or the other types of stuff where it's a packed club where people are coming specifically to see you, but they're just coming out for a night of comedy and they don't know anything about you. Maybe their only connection is from television or something like that, or they've
Yeah.
heard you or seen you open or headline for somebody else. So I want to ask you, I know it's been a while, but from the time that you were on television and we got exposed to you, I mean, you'd been doing comedy for a long time. And I normally talk to folks who are on AGT or whatever, like immediately after the fact, like Ryan Niedermeyer and those
Yeah.
guys who have kind of are coming off it. Ryan said for about the first year, his life was just insanely crazy after being on TV. How was that moment for you after you've gone on there and you've gone through the paces, working with
Mm,
producers and people who are having really heavy input into your sets and that sort of thing? I don't want to pull the curtain too far back, but I'm
yeah.
just curious.
I'll
Like,
expose it all.
well, I had a comedian on. Do you remember Bone Hampton, who was on like several years ago? He actually,
Mhm.
yeah, he pulled the curtain all the way back. He was like
Some
when
people
I,
like to do that.
but not necessarily that. I mean, obviously we know it's television, it's produced. People have a lot of say in what you do. They could be having you pull bits from years ago that aren't maybe relevant anymore, like when your kids were babies and now you're trying to tell these same jokes when they're teenagers. Like my point of the question is
Yeah.
like, how was your experience in that as far as just sort of winning or not winning and continuing on and having all that extra exposure?
Um, I will say this, because I think a lot of people don't know this. This is the one bit of the curtain I will pull back. What you just said is very true. They will have you pull stuff
Yeah.
from maybe even 10 years ago that you're not doing. And a lot of people, and this is why I'm glad to have more comedy literate audiences now, because a lot of people used to look at that and be like, oh, this person's a one trick pony. They only have that one set. And you're like, no, they vetoed three of my sets that I sent in and gave me no choice but to use older material because you also don't want to burn new material on a show like AGT. It's not an open mic. You don't test material out there.
No, no, no. That's
You
not a place to try
you
a new bit out. No.
No, you do your tried and true and you make sure that it annihilates, because that's really the point is, and the point isn't even winning. Like the point is not winning. The
No.
point is to be seen by enough people so that you can go to more clubs and experience more cities and be out there. And that's exactly what it did for me. It
Yeah, it
opened me
blew
up
you
to new
up
markets.
hugely. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I remember we
that
couldn't get you on the show because you were so busy.
I did that. I had filmed a movie. It was different things that were like coming into my life after I was off the show, and I made it to the top 10. I made it to the finale show. Um, it was nerve-wracking. It was emotionally exhausting only because there's a lot of pressure. Not so much the performance aspect of it, because comics perform live all the time. And after a while, if you've done enough work in front of a camera, you get really used to cameras being around you. So it's like, you know how to work the camera, you know what to do, you've been instructed how to do so. You know, it's more so the elimination shows that were the most nerve-wracking, because I'm an emotional person. I'm gonna cry. There's one thing about me, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry out of frustration. I'm gonna cry out of happiness. I'm gonna cry out of shock. And I'm gonna cry out of sadness. And I think it was the first elimination show that I was up. Um, I was scared out of my mind. I was scared out of my mind. Just for the embarrassment I knew I would feel and the letdown I feel like I would be if I didn't make it far. I was so nervous that I was going to let
Mm,
people down. And that's not a pressure that I think everybody feels, but I think
mm,
everybody feels a pressure in that moment for different reasons. You know,
right, for
for a
sure.
lot of people, my story, my being on AGT was an inspirational thing because I'm a Puerto Rican woman from the South Bronx. Like, there's a lot of comedians who thanked me because it gave them new goals, new things to hope for. Because they felt like a door had been opened. And I knew
Yeah.
that very much being on the show. So I felt the pressure of letting all those people down. Um, and so I think it was the first show where I was up against, I want to say it was the little girls, no, it was the dogs. Oh, it was me up against the dogs and
I
somebody
remember.
else. And let me just
I
say,
remember
the
that.
dog people were so sweet, and literally like they were just like, "Hey, we're in this together. Like everybody, it's gonna be all right." And then like they got eliminated and my heart sank, and they were fine with it. Like I was the blubbering mess on stage and off stage, because I was happy for me and yet sad for them at the same time.
Yeah.
um and so it was a lot of that, and when you experience that on a weekly basis, that happy sad happy sad happy sad, it's draining. And so I'm glad I kept my Skype appointments with my therapist like during that time,
That's
because
funny.
I needed it.
Yeah, Drew Lynch said the same thing. So
Yeah.
did Ryan and Vicky. They all said
Mhm.
similar things. It's like you're so thrilled to be there, but you just feel horrible. And Bone said too, I remember it's been several years, but like he was following this like dark arts magician, Sacred Rihanna. I don't know if you remember that. She comes out, she's like a little creepy doll magician, and then he has to come out and tell jokes about a chihuahua. And he's like, how does that work? And
Yeah.
I mean, I think we see it on television. It obviously, as you said, winning, losing doesn't matter. It's the exposure that you're getting and the
Yeah.
fact Samuel Conroe said the same thing. People went to go see him at clubs, and he hasn't been on the show, but he did say in an interview, it's like, this, what you saw was TV comedy. This is like
Yes.
comedy.
That's
Um,
what people don't understand either, that a lot of these comics you're seeing are, myself included, we have to send our stuff in to get approved. Like, we can't just do our set. Like, they'll have you change a word. They'll have you like, there were accents I couldn't do. I couldn't even do a southern accent. Like, there was a lot of stuff that there were just hard nose on. And
wow.
so when people go see you live, it's unfiltered. And you're like, this is the unfiltered version of what you saw. What you saw was a very TV friendly set. And thankfully, again, comedy literate audiences now know that. But I think when Sam was on the show, he had to constantly tell people, like, this is, yes, this is me unfiltered. Like, I was very much part of a machine, and you really are. I think probably the
Industry
most
for sure.
brilliant thing,
Yeah.
yeah, probably the most brilliant thing that was said to me about why a comic will most likely never win AGT, although I hope it does happen. I really do. Just for my love for the craft and comedians in general. There was an executive that told me this. I never forgot this. She literally was so brilliant, I thought, when she put this thought together. She said a comic will never win America's Got Talent because a skilled comedian makes it look effortless. And you are up against tightrope walkers, aerialists, people who swallow fire, jugglers. You are up against people that look like what they're doing is 10 times harder than anything that you're doing because you just walk out there and you're effortlessly funny.
Yeah, it's true. I watch comics time after time and I'm like, how are you doing this? Like, I have a hard time telling a story, like just what happened to me at dinner the other night.
Yeah.
And I'm like breathing and pausing weird. So add
Mm-hmm.
the elements of a microphone and an audience. If you want to see what pure comedy looks like, just raw, unadulterated, go to an open mic night. That's what I tell
Yep.
people.
Go to an open mic. You will see the most raw or a new material night, which is probably one of my favorite nights that they do it at the Comedy Cellar, new material night. They do it over at the Fat Black, which is one of their sister clubs. And there's no pressure for the comics, but these are all professional working comics, just like you would see at an open mic. These are comics. They're out there. They're fighting the good fight, and they need a place to work out the material. You're gonna see the rawest form at a new material night or at an open mic night because there's no filter. I mean, there's now climate wise somewhat of a filter, but most people, I don't really believe in all that rhetoric. I think you just have to be prepared for the consequences. You can still say whatever you want as a comic, but prepare yourself for the consequences that follow.
That's the
And
thing
I
I
think
think
that's
that people miss is that, I mean, you can say that. Some people would say otherwise, but I agree with you in the sense that as a comic, it's your job to report, as we said at the beginning. But then at the same time, well, right now, the big, not to get into it too much, but Matt Rife is the big controversy right now about his domestic violence joke, and
mhm,
he's holding his ground with that. So you have to be prepared for whatever that
yeah.
climate is or isn't. You know what I'm saying? Um,
I
or
think
the
he's holding his
consequence.
ground in an interesting way because I think there were several pathways, but I always look at this situation from
Yeah.
several different angles because I think people can be very black and white about a lot of this. And I think that's what kills a discussion for anything bigger and broader is when you look at things as black and white.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that he's handling it the best way. I think you can double down in one way or another, but um, doubling down in like a childish manner, I'm like, I don't, you're
Not the
not
best.
defending your point.
No.
That's the problem. You're not defending whatever point you were trying to make. You're not even explaining what your point was. You'd rather not have to explain it. Okay, cool. Again, you can still say whatever you want to say, but know that there are consequences. Do I think they're gonna, everybody's like, oh, this is his big flop, this is his downfall. If Louis can win a Grammy a year after his accusations, I think Matt will be fine. Like I
Yeah.
let's
Amen.
let's be real about how cancel culture actually works.
Yeah.
It
Or
doesn't
Dave
actually
Chappelle
cancel
or
you.
any of these other people. Yeah.
That's why I say
Netflix.
you can still say what you want. You can still say it. Just be prepared for people to make you feel embarrassed and uncomfortable at times.
Yeah. Netflix doubled down on the Chappelle thing and just released more stuff with him on it. And the president said, we're doing this no matter what. I digress.
Yeah.
I could talk to you for hours about this. I just think it's so fascinating. Um, So the special is we're gonna get that soon, hopefully. Uh
Yes, the special is everything comes soon. It will be called Mind Your Business. Mind Your Business, which is probably one of my favorite things in the world is when people mind their business. But um I cannot wait to put this together. I'm working with Ida Rodriguez, who will be directing it.
Oh, wow.
And, we have a lot of good people potentially attached. I'm keeping my fingers crossed because we have interest from a lot of people. But thank you to everybody who has been supportive about it and who understood that I had to postpone it. And I still plan on lighting that stage up in San Jose. You know what I mean?
She was last comic standing, right? Ida. Yeah, last comic
Yeah, yeah.
standing. Wow, crazy.
And
That was
yeah.
she's really good. Well, I want to talk about you have a movie too, right? That's
Mm.
let's talk about that.
Oh, I love this project so much. So not only am I a comedy nerd, but I'm a Christmas nerd. I love Christmas. It is my favorite holiday. I am a ugly sweater wearing, gift giving to everybody I know, Christmas loving person. So I get this audition to audition for this movie. It's called Dashing Through the Snow. It's on Disney Plus currently.
Yep.
And literally have probably one of the best auditions of my life with the casting director and the director, Tim Story. And we just hit it off right away. And I remember when they called me for the callback, I was like, I'm a big believer in manifestation and everything. I was like, no, I got this. It's in the bag. I got this. There's nobody else. Who are they going to book? Who else is a bigger Christmas nerd than me? Me, Michael Bublé, and Mariah all defrost Christmas time. That's it. We are ready to go.
Love it.
So I ended up getting the part. Super excited. I practically lived in Atlanta for like 2 months, 2 to 3 months to film it. Love Atlanta, by the way. Had a phenomenal time out there. Uh, and the movie stars Little Rel and Ludacris, and it's essentially your, Christmas story about saving Christmas. Like Santa gets himself into a bind. This one's a little more action packed, I think, than a lot of other ones. Like there's there's a lot going on. There's corrupt congressmen, and there's all this stuff that's going on with this. I loved everybody in it. I had a wonderful little family of my own. And like we were we bonded day one that we met. It was me and Sebastian Sosi, who played my husband, and Gabby Rosado, who played my daughter, and Noah. I want to say Noah Hernandez. I want to say, hopefully I got his last name right. Who played my son Diego. Let's just go with Noah for now. I don't want to get his name wrong, but we bonded with day one on set. We were like, this is it. We let all our weirdness out, and we had such a good time. I really wish they had done like a. Hopefully, maybe someday Will Packer will show the bloopers reel because we had a lot of funny moments and a lot of funny. He let us really rock. He let us improvise a lot of lines. And by the way, Ludacris is really funny.
Oh,
He
he's
is
hilarious. He's hysterical.
he's
There's
really
more to him than
I
the Fast and the Furious movies for sure as an
I
actor.
was so shocked because when you meet somebody like him, you're just like, I don't know what to expect. I really don't know what to expect. But just off the cuff, really funny, super friendly. Little Rel, of course, amazing. He was absolutely amazing to work with, and is just a wonderful human being. Like I love seeing good people win the way that he's been just doing great and winning. It's a fun family movie. I've watched it several times with my family. And I suggest that everybody watch it several times and then comment how much you loved me in the movie
Yes,
because I absolutely loved it. I would do another holiday movie in a heartbeat. They're fun. They have their cheesy Christmas moments, but it literally was one of the best experiences ever.
I love it. Well, congratulations on all of the success you've had. This is all very well deserved. Uh,
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we'll look forward to that. If you're ever in the Denver area, we'll come see
I
you.
love Denver. Yes,
There's
I
lots of
love
clubs
Denver. I
here
can't wait
between
to
here
go.
and there. Yeah, tons of them. So well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. I'm glad we were able to make this work. And
Yeah.
thanks everybody for watching later down the line on YouTube and listening and subscribing to our show. We have Gina and a million other amazing people as well, present company included. Gina, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.